Hi everybody, this is Francisco Gil-White for Arutz and Management of Reality in our joint programming. Today I have the great honor of welcoming Moshe Feyglin to my show. Moshe Feyglin is an Israeli politician who for a very long time has been defending the Israeli Jews, opposing the Oslo process and all the madness surrounding that. And right now he is running for office in the upcoming Israeli elections with his own party, Zehut, which means identity in Hebrew. And I want to talk to him today about why don't Israeli bosses, why can't they name who the enemy is? Moshe Feyglin, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Professor Francesco.
Okay, so just to set it up.
Be here, yeah.
Just to set it up. So I have seen, reading your book, and I have to say, Moshe has just published a book called Man in Search of Identity in Hebrew. That's the Hebrew title. Israel is Just the Beginning is the English title. It's a book that I think every Israeli Jew should read, but also every Westerner. In this book, you mentioned that you've had exchanges. Thank you. You mentioned that you've had exchanges with Israeli bosses where you ask them, who are we fighting? Who is the enemy? And I've also seen exchanges like this on TV. And when you ask this question, you can tell us in a second who you pose this question to. But what is amazing is they cannot say who the enemy is. What's going on, Moshe?
Well, I can tell you that in 2014, Tel Aviv was under attack of rockets that came from Gaza for over a month. And the deputy chief of staff, the Israeli deputy chief of staff, his name, believe it or not, was Gadi Eisenkot. General Gadi Eisenkot came to one of the closed meeting in the Knesset. I served then as the deputy speaker of the Knesset. He needed an approval to bring more reserves to call more reserves to the army. So he needed to come, and he tried to explain what they achieved so far, and he explained how many rockets they managed to eliminate and how many tunnels they bombed. And I looked at Eisenkot and I asked him a very simple question. I told him, look, a tunnel never attacked me. Okay, I'm not afraid of tunnels. Can you give me the name of the enemy? Not his weapons, the rockets, not his, tunnels. Who is the enemy? I asked General Eisenkot then in 2014, 12 years ago. He opened his mouth and closed it a few times. He couldn't give me a straight answer. He mumbled a few things and ran away. He could not say who the enemy is. And that problem of what you call bosses, okay? And not only.
Well, I don't want to call them leaders because they are not behaving like leaders. This is why I say bosses.
I think you're right, Francesco. But the problem is not that specific guy. It's much wider. The whole Western ideology that runs the leadership of the westernized countries is totally sick with a disease named progressivism. And when you sick with that sickness, with progress concepts, there are no identities at all. Okay, as I always explain, no human identity, because you can be a fox if you decide, or a pussycat, and everybody has to accept it. No sexual identity. You can decide if you're a man or woman or anything else in between or whatever. Of course, no family identity, and above all, no national identity. And when you don't know who you are, you definitely cannot recognize who your enemy is. And then it does not matter how strong you are, how big your army is, how many aircraft carriers you have. If you're dealing with an enemy that may on the paper is much weaker than you, but has an identity and know who he is, and see and understand who he decide is his enemy, then he's going to win against you. And I'll give you two simple examples. One from Israel and one from America. Israel took over the Gaza Strip in 1967 in 12 hours against the real army, Egyptian army. Okay? But it took us 2 years of running around our tail and almost 1,000 soldiers killed, okay, in order to create, just last week, in an Israeli government decision, a Palestinian state for Hamas. Okay? By the decision that the Israeli government took last week, that they approve what they call the government of specialized government, meaning under the frame of Qatar and Turkey and Egypt and above all America, of course, they're going to create a Palestinian state for the Hamas after what they did at the 7th of October. Okay, when you don't know who you are, you cannot identify your enemy, and therefore you cannot win your identity. Same thing happened with America and Iran. Now, what's the connection between Israel and America here? We were not attacked by Hamas. We were attacked by the Islamo-Nazi entity of Gaza that we created by our own hands in Oslo and in the disengagement plan. Okay, we gave them the land, we gave them the authority on that strip of land, and therefore we are the responsible for the creation of that Islamo-Nazi entity that I don't want to call a nation, because they are not Palestinians are not a nation, but they're definitely some kind of an entity that fighting a national war. And when they butchered the civilians, men, women, and children in the kibbutzim of Be'eri and Tiva Asara and around Gaza, it was not a private criminal act. They didn't care about the specific woman that they're raping or kid they're killing. They had the war against the Jewish nation and the state of the Jews, Israel. But we had a war against Hamas, against an organization, against those who attacked us, not, God forbid, the entity of Gaza, not against Gaza. Same thing with Americans. The Americans don't have a war with Iran, only with a regime. Same thing, by the way, happened in Lebanon. We don't have a fight against Lebanon, God forbid. They're the good guys. We have a fight against an organization, Hezbollah. Well, you know better than anybody else that who has the authority, the monopole on using the power, he is the state. I hope I said it right. You can correct me to say it. Okay, that's the first rule. Who is the state? The one who has the monopoly on using power. He is the representative of the state, and therefore Hezbollah is Lebanon, Lebanon is Hezbollah, and therefore Gaza is Hamas, and Hamas is Gaza. And the regime of Iran, even though there are many civilians that would like to see different regime, but you have a national war against Iran. And when you're fighting against the regime and being very, very careful not to fight against the state of Iran, meaning destroy all the oil wells, destroy all their capability of selling oils, their ports, and the power plants, and the connection, phones and internet and bridges and domes and so on, basically bring them back to the Stone Age, and maybe you'll still have a regime, but the regime will not have a state anymore. Okay, that's the way to win a national war. But America was very careful not to do it, and because of that, America lost in Iran, and because of that, Israel lost in Gaza and Lebanon. So when you're coming from a progressive conscience, from a progressive concept, okay, and trying to win a war, you can't. Progressive countries cannot win wars, period.
ערוץ טוב, טוב Plus, is organizing a variety of lectures on security, law, Judaism, and the Middle East, presented by some of Israel's leading speakers. You can watch Tov channel lectures online from anywhere in the world. To purchase tickets, click the link below the video player, and you'll be able to access all of this incredible content that Arutz Tov is preparing for you. Thank you. Back to the show. It seems to me, Moshe, everything you're saying is very clear to me, but I want to push back a little bit, because it seems to me that when you asked Gadi Eisenkot this question, and you've asked it to other people, it seems to me an easy answer, which they don't give, or correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me an easy answer is at least to answer that you're fighting Hamas, but they won't even do that. So they don't say the enemy is Gaza, but they don't even say that the enemy is Hamas. Am I right about that?
Yes, you're right. And the reason why he couldn't say it then, and they still have a problem with that, is because if Hamas is the enemy, it means that we need to destroy Hamas.
Right.
But Hamas has the control of Gaza. So in order to destroy Hamas, you need to take over Gaza. Okay? You cannot destroy Hamas without boots on the ground. Okay? If you're taking over Gaza, it means that's the end of the Oslo agreement. The whole concept of Oslo is that we're giving away our land that we got from God in miracles, okay, and with the blood of our soldiers in 1967. We're taking this land and we're giving it to this invented nation, the Palestinian nation, and they will control that land by themselves, and let us control what we took away from them, so to speak, in 1948. We're coming for some kind of an agreement that that's the concept of Oslo and the concept of the Israeli Hasbara. We'll give you back what we took away from you, that was belonged to you all the time, in 1967, and you somehow accept what we took away from you, the land that we took away from you in 1948. That's the crazy line of Oslo and the Israeli understanding. And
okay, Moshe, it seems to me that this explains why the operational doctrine seems to be we go in, we destroy some materiel, we destroy some tunnels, we kill a few terrorists, and then the ground that was captured is then abandoned to the same terrorists, and then they have to conquer it again and again and again and again, and each time Israeli soldiers have to give their lives to reconquer what had already been conquered and is given away over and over again. It seems to me that operational doctrine is a consequence of not being able to name even Hamas as the enemy. Because if they did retain the ground and they stuck to it and conquered it, as you say, well then Hamas is finished, and also what you're saying is that Oslo failed and you're going to roll it back.
That's right, because you have to take back your authority on your own land, and that's against the whole concept of Oslo.
Okay, so let's talk about the background, Moshe. So what these people cannot name the enemy. It seems to me if these people continue to govern Israel, then Israel is finished, because the enemy is going to keep attacking. These people cannot even name the enemy. They can't conquer territory. They always give it back to the enemy. So this is a mortal kind of a fatal wound on the structure of Israeli governance. What's the path forward here?
As long as the same leaders, doesn't matter left or right, because Netanyahu is totally obligated to the same path. Okay, as long as the same leaders continue leading Israel, Eisenkot, Netanyahu, the chief of staff that we have today, same leaders in the army, the same conscience. Okay, it was created by the left. Is the conscience that leads our leaders will face the same results again and again, and will keep on, it's a slippery road to hell, and we already started to fall in it.
What's behind this, Moshe? Where does this come from?
Wow. It comes from the need of these old guys, okay? They're all 70, 80 years old today, okay? To continue the concept of let's be normal. Let's be nation like all the nations. They cannot lean on our basic belief, Jewish belief, that this land belongs to us, not to them. Okay? It's the promised land that was promised to us by God. Gaza is definitely part of Eretz Israel, the Holy Land of Israel, and therefore, the 7th of October was an opportunity, not only horrors, but also an opportunity. Throw away the Oslo agreements; they have no meaning anymore. Take it back. Throw these monsters away. Even Trump offered that to you at the beginning. And build again Gush Katif, flourish the land, build the new Israeli airport there. It's the best place for a new modern Israeli airport in the Gaza Strip. Definitely. Gaza should be a Hebrew city. Just as we did in 1948 in many Arab cities, we should do it again. It's ours. We are the side that comes with justice. It belongs to us, not to you. That's the basic question. As long as you cannot say, this is my land, zo artzeinu, as long as you cannot say that, you're just a nice occupier, a nice colonialist, okay? A polite robber, you name it. And you can show the world how nice you are and how monster that the whole world will be with them, and they're right. The fact that you are more humane and nice and modern, so what? It belongs to him, not to you. Go away.
This brings me back to the question of identity, because it seems to me the underlying theme here is that what you're saying is these people are not proud Jews. They don't have a strong Jewish identity, because if they did, they wouldn't be behaving this way. So as you say in your book, and as you said in many different places, it seems that it all goes back to recentering a strong Jewish identity that is proud of being Jewish, that is proud of the Jewish heritage and the connection of the Jewish people to the land of Israel. And it seems to me, unless there is a rebirth of Jewish, or I actually think a lot of Jews do have the proper Jewish identity, but it's very difficult for them to achieve control of the institutions of the Israeli state, wouldn't you say?
A lot of Jews have a good, proud Jewish identity. You're right, but we are at the miracle process of the Jewish nation coming back after 2,000 years of diaspora, and pogroms and being just, a religion to the status of a nation, sovereign nation on their promised land. We creating our nationality again. The beginning of it was an attempt to create our nationality based on civilian or secular concepts, pushing God out of the picture. And that totally failed. Now we need to create a leadership, okay, that function through different mentality. Look what I have on my on my jacket here, okay? The pin over here symbolizes the temple, the Jewish temple, which is our source of nationality. That's the goal. That's the reason why God created the Jewish nation to begin with, to build him a palace in Jerusalem for the entire humanity. And all the nations will come to pray at the house of God in Jerusalem. This is our goal. And when you have a leadership that carries that in, and not the yellow ribbon, okay? What do the yellow ribbon representing? Okay, a progressive mentality that's saying we only care about the individual, and we do, of course, care about the hostages. Okay, I walked for 2 years with stones in my shoes. We all care, of course, about the hostages, and if they would have listened to me, they would have been released much long time before they did. Okay. After a few days, we would have had them again. All we needed to do is close the water supply, and whoever wants a cup of water should come out with the hostages. But then you would have seen how fast you can win that war and get the hostages back. Okay, but they did not want to win that war. However, you need a leadership that comes out with the old concept of Jewish nationality, the concept that comes from the covenant we have with God, okay? And with that conscience, lead the state of Israel and connect this this wonderful generation of heroes, okay, who deserve that new kind of leadership, not to lose the war after they sacrificed so much.
Thank you, Moshe. We have to go. I want to make one last comment and get a very quick reaction from you. It seems to me that for a long time, the media, the bosses in the West and everywhere have been trying to convince the Israeli Jews that the way to get respect is to make concessions for the enemy, to the enemy. But what you're saying, it seems to me, is that you can't expect respect from others if you don't respect yourself. And if you can't even say who the enemy is, and if you're always making concessions to the enemy, what you're telling the world is that you don't respect yourself, that you don't think you have a right to self-defense, actually. That's what you're saying, that's what you're telling the world. And if you keep doing that in your behavior, you can't expect respect from the nations. Does that make sense?
Not only makes sense, we saw it just recently with our own eyes. At the beginning, Trump wanted Israel to take a quarter or a third of Syria and to expel all the Arabs from Gaza and take control and be the superpower of the region, of the Middle East, so he can make business you did not want. So we went to Giuliani. He respect Giuliani and he respect Erdogan. Now, by the way, he respects very much Zelensky because he acts exactly that way. These leaders don't make concessions. They want to win. So Trump respects them. Netanyahu, for a few weeks, he begged for another meeting and had to pay terrible price just for the meeting with Trump. Okay, why? Exactly because of what you said right now. When you don't respect yourself, when you're not fighting in order to win, and winning means taking over the land, expel your enemy, and flourish the land with Jews again. That's the meaning of winning. No other way.
That sounds like a leader. Thank you very much, Moshe Feiglin, for your words. I hope to talk to you again soon, and best of luck.
Thank you very much, Professor.
Thank you, everybody. This is Francisco Gil-White for Arutz Tov and Management of Reality in our joint programming. I hope to see you again soon.
חדש בערוץ טוב. מועדון היחידה מזמין אתכם להרצאה חדשה בכל חודש עם מיטב המרצים. אנשי הביטחון, החוקרים והפרשנים על כל הסוגיות שמעצבות את המציאות בישראל ובעולם. דוקטור מרדכי קידר, מושיק קוברסקי, האלוף יצחק בריק, פרופסור טליה איינהורן, אליהו יוסיאן, אמיר גלאור, שלום בן חנן ועוד רבים וטובים. בכל חודש במועדון הגולה בפתח תקווה. חברי מועדון היחידה נהנים ממחיר מיוחד בהרצאות הפרונטליות ומאפשרות לצפות בכל ההרצאות גם בדיגיטל ללא עלות נוספת. כל הפרטים בקישור שמתחת לנגן.